Hey guys, it's T-Pain coming at you live with medieval and Renaissance Europe. And by live, I mean pre-recorded and not live at all. Um, Renaissance is some of my favorite stuff. I love talking about these things. Medieval Europe is, of course, fascinating. King Arthur, these are where these legends come from. Um, and we're going to talk about medieval period and then the Renaissance. So the medieval period is the time from what we consider the fall of Rome, Western Rome specifically, to the time that the Renaissance began. So when Rome fell and when Roman authority kind of dropped off, we see a massive disruption in learning and in knowledge and all of these skills that the Romans had. And as that happened, there became a big change in how societies did things and also what people were capable of. We see a number of people, specifically Charlemagne, take power in this vacuum. The book has some big issues with this, or I have some big issues with what the book talks about. Then we get into the Renaissance. Now, what happens is there's these things called the Crusades, where a bunch of Christians from Europe, for various reasons, I won't get into it now because we have later in the chapter to talk about it, go to the Middle East to try to quote unquote protect Christianity. They are going to go to the Middle East and they're going to kill a bunch of people there, including a bunch of Christians who are in the Middle East. They're not. It's real messed up. But in any case, what happens is this war on the Middle Eastern folks from Europe is going to begin the Renaissance. And the reason for that is because from the end of the end of Rome, the Western Rome, to when the Crusades begin, most of Europe has forgotten or lost contact with a lot of these Roman ideas, with a lot of these skills, like how to build buildings in certain ways, how to draw in certain ways, how to paint in certain ways. Okay, a lot of these ideas that Rome had were lost because the people who came in and took over did not keep them around or did not have that knowledge anymore. And when the Crusades happens, you have a bunch of Western Europeans who go to the Middle East and they find that the people in the Middle East still had that Roman knowledge. Not only did they still have that Roman knowledge, that the knowledge of Greek philosophers and Greek artists and Roman artists and architects and engineers, but the folks in the Middle East have still been using it. They've still been growing those ideas. They've still been using that and developing those ideas. And so the folks in the Middle East, the folks in Europe, when they get to the Middle East for this war, they end up taking a bunch of the ideas that they find in the Middle East back with them to Europe. And it's those Roman ideas as well as the Middle Eastern ideas that they bring with them back to Europe that really sets off what we call the Renaissance. Okay, when folks came to the Crusades, this is the first time that Europeans had ever seen sugar. This is the first time that many of these Europeans had ever seen great works of art and seen a lot of these amazing things. This is the first time they came in contact with schools. Okay, this is the first time they came in contact with hospitals. Okay, because schools and hospitals were things that were invented and created by folks in the Middle East. Okay, by Muslim scholars and Muslim doctors. Okay, and so when they bring these back with them to Europe, that begins the Renaissance. Okay. And we'll talk more about that going forward. We're going to talk about the Holy Roman Empire, okay? France and Spain. We got England. The Holy Roman Empire it changes its borders at various points through history. But it basically was a number of Germanic tribes. Okay, not all of the Germanic tribes, because France, the Franks, were at one point part of the Holy Roman Empire as well. Okay, during Charlemagne, we start to get some really fantastic castles. Okay, as their people are warring between themselves a lot. So first off, this is wrong. So wrong. The Germanic tribes that caused the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD didn't just devastate towns and kill many of their inhabitants, they destroyed a way of life. Absolutely incorrect. Okay? The Ostrogoths were Roman. They believed they were Roman. Okay? So what happened is, well, I mean, this is like a college level course, but a lot of these people believed they were part of Rome. Okay? They were part of the Roman kingdom. And as they were being pushed into Europe, they originally started further up. And as folks like Attila the Hun is devastating all of this area up north, he is pushing these Germanic tribes to go south of the Danube into the Roman territory. And when he's doing that, and south of the Rhine, so Danube, Rhine, when he's pushing these tribes into Roman territory, the first groups who come in like 200, they are welcomed into the Roman Empire. They are made to be Roman citizens, and they really become Roman. And in fact, some of them will eventually become a Roman emperor, and we're going to have our first Germanic emperors. And the first time a white guy becomes a Roman emperor of Rome. Because before that, the original Italians are much darker skinned. We even had a African Roman emperor. Okay, but what's going to happen is the second wave. Okay, there's going to be even more pressure, and more Germanic tribes are going to move into Rome. At this point, Rome is actually struggling a little bit, and mostly because the Eastern Roman Empire is where all the money is. Rome itself, and a lot of this area here, is having a number of issues. And when this second group of Germanic tribes comes in, hey bud, they are going to not be welcomed in the same way. They're going to be allowed in, but they're going to not become allowed to become Romans. And they're going to work for Rome, but they're still going to maintain their own identity. And that's actually a problem. When you have immigrants coming into a country, you don't want Spanish folks coming over here into America and still be Spanish. You want them to come to America and become American. Now, that doesn't mean they have to abandon their heritage or their ideas or even their language, but you want them to identify as an American, right? Because we have all kinds of Mexican Americans. We have all kinds of Irish Americans and African Americans and, all sorts of folks. But the important thing is that they still identify as American. When you have an immigrant who comes here and does not identify as an American, but specifically still believes that they're a citizen or they're a member of this group and don't buy into the American dream, then you have a problem. And that's what Rome did. Is when Rome, the Roman Empire, didn't accept the immigrants who are coming in as Romans, then they ended up having a fair amount of issues with that. Okay, but there's a whole bunch of other things. Most of these folks, though, that took over, like the kingdom of the Ostrogoths, they thought they were Rome. They believed they were Roman. The problem was their culture was so different because they were not welcomed into Rome in the same way, that they did not have access to the same base of knowledge that the Romans did. And they lacked the ability to read a lot of the Latin and a lot of the texts that the Romans had. And so they're going to lose a lot of that Roman knowledge. In any case, the fall of Rome is a gradual thing, especially because the Eastern Roman Empire continues to be Rome for quite a long time. like I said, this is basically a college course right here on the fall of Rome, um, but it's definitely more complex than Germanic tribes conquered it, because that's not really what happened. Um, let's see. In any case, as these Germanic tribes um, have become Rome, they've lost a lot of this Roman ability. And it's this loss that brings us into the Middle Ages. Um, and as such, we have um, these different groups who all are starting to do things their own way. And when they're doing that, we have this the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages, depending on how you talk about it. Now, the Catholic Church, which is the only Christian church at the time, okay, is, well, the only Christian church this side. There's the Eastern Orthodox that begins at this point over here. But the Catholic Church over here in Europe is they maintain their same control and same power. It lessens a bit. And the Catholic Church is only going to, books in Europe at this time have a tendency to get moldy and to disintegrate and fall apart. So they have to be copied over and over again and remade over and over again in order to continue. And the Catholic Church, who's in charge of this, they are going to not, they're only going to care about the Bible and a few select other books. They're not going to spend their energy copying Greek dudes, old Greek philosophers who they don't view as they view as sacrilegious. Okay, and so we have a lot of old Roman and Greek books which disappear. Okay, they no longer exist in the Western Europe, and that's going to come back. We're going to come back to that later. We have Charlemagne, or Charles the Magne, Charles the Great. Okay, also the name of my cat, Charlemagne. And good old Charles, good old Charlie. He is going to conquer most of the Germanic kingdoms. Okay, he is going to he comes from the Franks, and he's going to conquer most of the Burgundians and the kingdom of the Ostrogoths. Okay, he's not going to conquer Rome specifically because he does not want to conquer Rome. He wants Rome to be independent as the Catholic Church in charge. Okay, and so Charlemagne is Christian, Catholic, and he is trying to spread that Catholicism, often through violence, right? Great men are not always good men. Charlemagne murdered hundreds of people, thousands of people, okay, because they were not the right religion in his mind. Great man, not a good man, okay? Greatness and kindness rarely intersect, and that's kind of a big deal. Charlemagne was kind to folks within his nation. He worked hard to build a lot of things, but it's very difficult to, when we're talking about conquerors. You know, there's never going to be a kind or a good conqueror, because by definition, you murdered a bunch of people, right? All right. Buried treasure, feudal society. When we're talking about feudal society, this was actually based off of the Catholic Church. Okay, the Catholic Church has pope, archbishops, bishops, priests, and lay people at the bottom. Okay, this was then copied by kings so that they could utilize the same sort of ideas. Okay, and you have the noblemen who own, the king technically, supposedly, owns all of the land, right? But he gives away vast swaths of land to folks who trust in him. And then they give away smaller parcels of land to their folks who trust in them. And then there's slaves, essentially, who work the land and are tied to the land. So this is slavery in a different way. We call them serfs. This says they're not slaves. 100% serfs are slaves. Um, I, I don't see any other way to it. The slaves could buy their freedom too. So their distinction here is a distinction without a distinction. Um, Serfs are 100% slaves. They're just tied to the land. So you didn't buy and sell a serf. Okay, that wasn't something you could do. Instead, when you bought or sold the land, the serf came with it. Okay, so the serfs, as far as they're concerned, they like, okay, my dad is a farmer, I'm a farmer, we're all farmers. And this actually came from one of the Roman emperors. He ended up inadvertently created serfs, or I guess advertently he meant to. Um, anyway, this social order, this feudalism, you're going to see it mirrored. Japan's going to do something very similar to it. In fact, a lot of nations are going to do something sort of similar to feudalism. Okay. That's all I really have for you. I know it's a little bit long. Question I want to ask you is for your extra bonus question. We're talking about Charlemagne, and we're talking about greatness versus goodness. What do you? I kind of want your idea on it. You know, they ask how he was a stabilizing or steadying force in Western Europe. I want to ask you guys. You know, was Charlemagne a good Christian? You know, to conquer and put to death people who were not of his faith. Was that right? What do you guys think about that? Because you know, yes, he's spreading Christianity, but he's also murdering a bunch of people. The Bible seems to have some thoughts on that. What do you think about? And you don't have to, you know, believe in Christianity to, I think, have a thought on this. Is it right to spread your religion this way? He did great things, and I've said before, he didn't do good things necessarily, but good is subjective. He united a nation. Was that good? So I kind of want your idea on. I want you to write a little bit about Charlemagne and the idea of greatness versus goodness. Was he a good man, or did what he did, was it good? Okay. A little convoluted, but I think you guys can give me something interesting. I always want to challenge you like that. So have a good one, guys.